Tables and seats are now on sale for the biggest night in the digital video calendar, the TellyCast Digital Video Awards. We're celebrating excellence in the only award ceremony created especially for the social video industry, with over 100 channels, shows and series shortlisted across 27 categories. It all takes place on the evening of 5th of June during South by Southwest London Week at the luxurious Londoner Hotel in Leicester Square. The guest list reads like the who's who in the next generation of entertainment. So book your table, half table or seat now and join the talent and executives shaping the content industry of tomorrow. Just visit digitalvideoawards.co.uk to secure your place now. The TellyCast Digital Video Awards, the biggest night in the digital video calendar. We'll see you there.
TellyCast.
Hi and welcome to TellyCast, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of television and content with some of the industry's most influential voices. I'm Justin Crosby, and today we have a special guest who's worn many hats in the media world, Remy Blumenfeld. Remy is a coach and advisor who's helped shape the careers of industry leaders, and today going to be sharing 5 top tips to help content producers navigate the complexities of the industry whilst fostering a mindset of growth, collaboration and self-awareness. For videos featuring the movers and shakers of the TV and digital content industries, just click on the link in the episode description or search for TellyCast TV on YouTube. Remy, welcome to TellyCast.
Thank you for having me. I've listened as a fan. It's nice to be in this seat.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you with us. I'm really fascinated to hear about your tips, and we're going to be discussing some of those tips in a second. But before we get to those, you've had a really impressive career in the TV industry. Can you tell us about your journey from your early days through to now where you are a coach, and what prompted your change from a content producer to a coach?
Well, I could tell you the kind of autobiography from the point of view of a TV producer, or I could tell you it from the perspective of a coach. And I'll try and do a little of both in the same story. So I think knowing what I know now, I went into TV like many people did for a reason. I went into TV to prove that I wasn't not good enough, which I know sounds like a bit of a weird double negative, but I've seen in my coaching that that's why a lot of us went into TV in the first place, because it was a big place to prove that we weren't not good enough. And the kind of logic was, if 1 million people watch it, if it gets a great review, if I win a BAFTA, this is a screen on which I could finally prove to myself that I was not good enough. And of course, it doesn't really work like that, because you can go on achieving and you still never prove that to yourself, which is why people go on trying to prove things even once they've done stuff, right? But I went onto TV. I went right into mainlining that affirmation, right? I went on TV as a reporter in New York in the mid 80s. And I was just out of school, and I figured New York is the place to prove that I am good enough. I probably thought I was proving I was good enough, whereas in fact, I was proving I was not good enough. But I went on TV thinking, this will do it. This will show everyone. They will see I am good enough. And I had
originally a journalist, presenter, essentially.
I was originally a presenter, and I did really what I was allowed to do in New York as someone with a British accent at that time, which was arts and entertainment and lifestyle reporting. And it all suited me quite well because, frankly, I didn't really have any training as a journalist. So lifestyle and arts and entertainment was probably all I was cut out to do. And I had a great time doing it. I had my own segment, which was called Remy's People. There were only 5 channels on TV in New York in the 80s. So I had a job at one point on 3 of them. I started out on Channel 11, I went to Channel 9, and I did some work for Channel 7, all as a reporter, kind of playing myself. My agent said to me at the time, there's one secret to being a TV reporter. If you can just be yourself, so long as you can fake that, you've got it made. And I think I sort of faked being myself for the better part of 7 years. I then came back to England just because life in New York felt a little bit unnurturing. I mean, I wasn't surrounded by my friends from childhood. My family were far away. And although people recognized me on the street, it didn't feel very nurturing and loving. I wasn't alone, but yeah, it wasn't nurturing and it wasn't supportive. It was kind of I was doing the same thing pretty much every day. 1 minute 30 reports on this, that, or the other thing. And it became a bit formulaic. It became a bit boring. And my friends and family were far away. So I came back to England and got a job on a show called 31 West, which was at the forefront of satellite broadcasting. It was BSB at the time. But before it became BSkyB. So the little square reel, which no one actually had. And what I discovered was that it was actually quite fun making the show, even though no one could watch it. So whereas I'd gone into TV for mass affirmation or the hope of mass affirmation, I was now making it just because it was kind of fun to make. I got to meet interesting people with fun people who loved doing what they did. And actually it was almost impossible to watch it. My parents spent the better part of 6 months trying to get a square reel. By the time they got it, BSB was off the air. And BSB going off the air overnight really was what created my next move, which was to become a producer, because I had loads of ideas for TV shows. I'd always been producing my own content as a reporter and then on 31 West on this daily entertainment show. So I hadn't just been in front of the camera. I'd been writing, I'd been editing, I'd been out with crews. So I had loads of ideas for TV shows, and I must have sent about 90 of them off to different broadcasters, and no one even reply. Well, maybe a couple of people replied, but no one bit at anything. And that was when I realized if I want to make shows, I need to set up a production company, because no one's going to commission me from my room in Brixton as me. So even though I was still in my room in Brixton, I, with my partner, formed a company called Brighter Pictures, and we started pitching the same shows, but with a little bit more response. And we started making shows about the edges of society, really, which was kind of where we were at. So we didn't make shows about stuff we didn't know about or stuff we didn't watch. We made the first black music show on Channel 4, which was called Flavor, which ran for 10 years. We made the first Indian pop culture show for BBC Two called Bombay Blush. We made shows called Gay, Straight or Taken. We made kind of fun, funky shows around the edges of society, which during the 90s sort of miraculously became the middle, because black music started to dominate the charts. Indian pop culture was everywhere. Being gay was no longer quite so on the edges. So actually the content we were making became more in the middle, and we were later bought by Endemol, which then prompted another move, because I then became part of a corporate structure working at Endemol rather than as a freelancer.
Very different.
Very, very different. Very, very different. And that lasted 5 years. And then I left, actually set up another production company, which was just getting off the ground when the 2008 crash happened. And our investors who'd had, were new to TV, kind of got totally freaked out at the thought that without advertising, without that, what was going to happen to their money. So they pulled the plug. Luckily, ITV came to the rescue and bought our content, bought the company, and I went to work at ITV as a director of format. So I became an executive for a couple of years at ITV Studios, working with their big formats and trying to sell them around the world. And then I later became a coach. So that's kind of my TV career in a nutshell. And I think the question about how I became a coach is a whole different question altogether. It was really that I found I was leading teams without any training. And I think this is something that happens for a lot of people in TV. You work up the ladder, you end up being an executive producer or department head or a commissioner or running an indie. And your main job is to inspire people, to guide people, to champion people, to hold people accountable, but no one teaches you anything. So some people are naturally more good at a couple of those things. Some people are not good at any of them, but no one has any training in any of that. So I went and got some training to be a coach and discovered that I loved that world. I loved the people who were in it. I loved the process. I loved the place that it put me in to kind of advise and counsel and guide. And then I came back to my office where no one wanted to be coached. Because to be a coach, you need a client. That's the thing that, there's a joke about how many great business coaches does it take to change a light bulb? Only one. But the light bulb really has to want to change.
Yes.
And I was now with clients who didn't really want to change, right? They were very happy just to have me as their boss. They didn't want to coach, which is perfectly understandable. They hadn't come into that environment to be coached, but I now wanted to coach people. So I took my bag of coaching tricks out to a wider audience and discovered there was a market for it, that there really wasn't that much specialist knowledge in coaching in the creative industries from people like me who'd actually walked the walk. There were plenty of people who'd trained to be coaches, but not that many people who'd worked their way up from being a reporter to a producer to running a company to being an executive. So I kind of understood the pain, and I understand the pain that a lot of my clients are going through. And that's where you meet me today as a coach who kind of has walked the walk and understands folks' pain.
Want to get ahead in digital-first content? The Drop is the go-to newsletter for industry professionals, delivering insider news, trends, and insights straight to your inbox. Navigate the fast-changing landscape of digital-first production, distribution, and monetization. Sign up now for free at dropmedia.co.uk and stay informed with The Drop. Well, that's interesting let's just delve into that a little bit more for a second. What are the main obstacles then your clients are asking you to help them with when we come to content industry leaders? I mean, what are they the same sort of obstacles you faced during your career? And because obviously we're also facing an enormous amount of turbulence in the industry at the moment, and lots of change has happened, particularly since COVID. So I'm interested to know, what your clients are seeking help from you with. What are their obstacles?
Yeah, it's interesting. The reason why people come to coaching in the first place is sometimes quite different from what they then say they got out of it as a result. So very often people come because they're struggling with a transition. They're trying to manage a new role in their lives, a new period, a new chapter. They don't feel equipped for that. But sometimes they come because they just want help with advancing their career. They feel like they've plateaued, they're stuck at a certain place. I think generally what most people come away realizing is their own power in the situation, which they hadn't perhaps realized before. So people often come thinking that it's something about the industry or something about their boss or something about the structure of the company or the market. And what they haven't addressed or seen in that, because we don't see our own blind spots. What they hadn't seen very often is what they were doing that was causing it or precipitating it or not causing it to change. And so I think what most people come away from is just a sense of what they could be doing differently to create a different result for themselves. It's a very broad way of saying that. I think what most people come to coaching for is themselves. So there's, they might think it's their career or the industry, but actually it's, I can't coach the industry. I can't change the environment. What I can change is how you navigate in it and how you relate to other people and what you do about it. And a lot of that coaching comes from my own experience and things that I did wrong, like the mistakes that I made, the things that I didn't do that I wish I had done, that I can see, because we can see very clearly with hindsight in the rearview mirror, but it's quite often quite difficult in the moment to recognize what it is we're not doing that we might be doing differently.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look at the 5 tips that you've prepared for us. So thank you in advance for those. Number 1 is commitment versus attachment. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So it was quite a struggle to just find 5 because there are so many, but I think we all come in with projects that we feel very attached to, like whether it's our company or whether it's a program that we're pitching, we feel like this project is me. This company is me. This is all about me. So when I'm attached, my ego is involved, and it can be quite heavy for the other person because you will immediately get a sense of whether I'm just here to chat about something or whether it's all about me. Like if you like me, if you accept me, if you say yes to my idea, then I feel okay. Whereas if you go, I'm not really into this, then I feel rejected. And when we feel emotionally attached and our ego is attached to an idea or a project, it usually doesn't happen. It usually doesn't come off because I've spoken to many commissioners, some of whom are my clients, and they immediately know when somebody's attached. Because instead of it being a playful exchange, it's quite heavy. And I mean, even if I were to invite you to lunch, you would know whether I was attached or just committed. So being committed is a great place to be, right? It means I want this to happen. I will do everything in my power to make it happen, even that if that means me not being there, or even if that means me not executing the show or me not directing the show, because I want the show to happen and I'll do everything I can to make it happen. But it's not about me. It's about the project. So you can say, how about 6 instead of 9? How about changing the title? How about having a new present? And I'll be fine about that because I'm committed to having it happen. Whereas when I'm attached, you can't change a thing because it's all about me.
Yeah,
and I feel
it's an ego, and you feel offended almost when anybody tries to improve it.
Absolutely. And when people are offended, when you just make a suggestion, it doesn't really bode well for the relationship. So if you come in with a project that the commissioner feels they can't make the slightest change to without you being offended, they generally walk away because they know it's going to be a disaster, because they know they're going to have to make lots of changes to get it over the line, to the length, to the duration, to the title, to the presenter, to the talent, whatever it might be. So if you're there holding it like this is all about me, and if you say yes, it just doesn't feel like it has a future.
Well, it's presenting a battle almost to begin with, isn't it, for the commissioner?
Yeah, it doesn't feel collaborative, and it doesn't feel fun, and it doesn't feel like what they want is going to end up on screen because you're too protective and you're just holding it too close. And I think there's definitely a myth, Justin, in the creative industries that how can you make a show without being attached? I often get this from people, like, whether it's a documentary or a factual series or a drama, like, it is my baby, it is my creation. And if I was a painter or a sculptor, you wouldn't tell me that I shouldn't be attached. Of course, it is. You're putting yourself into it. How can you tell me that if I'm making this, it's not about me? Of course it's about me. I wrote it. I conceived it. I made it. It's me. And what those people fail to see is that successful artists, yes, they have that moment when they're attached, when they're painting on the canvas, for instance. But in order to sell the work, they need to stand back. You know, Damien Hirst didn't get where he is by being attached. You can create the work in any context you want, but once it's finished, once this is a proposal, what do you think? You have to stand back and not be attached. You have to stand back and go, what can we do to get this over the line? What can we do to make this? What do you want me to do to change it in order for it to happen? Otherwise, it becomes, I want you to raise my baby, but I don't want you to change a thing about it. And you can't name it, and you can't dress it. And it has, why would you want to take that baby?
Yeah. So you need the passion really to create that attachment in the first instance, but then you maybe need to flip to a more business way of thinking when it comes to commitment and being able to sell that project on with you or without you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's called show business, not show arts. And being attached just doesn't help get things over the line. You can be very passionate about it when you're thinking about it and dreaming it up, but it still doesn't mean it's about you. The Greeks had an interesting idea about genius. The genius isn't something you are. Genius is something that flows through you. The genius flows through you. You're not a genius, but you can allow the genius to flow through you. And I think if you kind of think about creativity as something that flows through you, that creates a project, which is then the project. Now let's talk about the project, which kind of brings me on to the second bit of advice, which is the distinction between pitching and enrolling. Because you can't actually enroll someone in something if it's all about you. But if you pitch something, it implies that I'm going to take my idea and kind of throw it at you, and you're going to catch it and go, yes, I want this. And now it's yours. And the truth is, it's never yours. It's never mine. It floats between us in a space that we're co-creating. And if you don't allow for that co-creative process, generally things don't happen, because as the buyer of an idea, you're not buying a car that's finished. You're buying something that has yet to be made. So of course you want to have input into it. Of course you want to affect how it looks and what it feels like. And so if I'm throwing you something that's finished, and that's why I definitely advise clients not to use PowerPoint and video. And basically, when you've got a germ of idea, talk about it with your client and get them to feel like it's their idea first, and have them feel like you're making the video for them. You're making the PowerPoint for them. You're creating it with them, so that when it comes to them, they're not like, oh, that's not what I wanted, and say no. They're more like, this is just what I wanted. You've inputted my ideas. It looks how I wanted it to look. It feels like how I wanted it to feel. And they feel ownership. And when they feel ownership, only really when they feel ownership, is there any chance of it happening.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage you to enroll rather than to pitch.
Yeah.
Have a conversation about it. And that conversation can be really short to begin with, right? It could be, how about Joanna Lumley and the pyramids? And they might go, love Joanna Lumley, not sure about the pyramids, or love the pyramids, not sure about Joanna Lumley. And then you take it through from there, rather than coming in with a whole 6-minute tape of Joanna Lumley and the pyramids, which they end up going, not quite sure.
Yeah. You need to build a champion within the organization that's potentially commissioning your project, essentially.
100%. And I think very often it's something that we all do. We kind of say, my client is Netflix or my client is the BBC. But That's not your client. Your client is a person who sits there, who knows you, who's enrolled in your story and wants to say yes to you. And they may go somewhere else next week, but build that relationship and don't get confused by the whole ego thing of saying, I'm working for Netflix. You're probably not. You're probably working for one person there who is going to say yes to you, and you need to build that relationship.
Yeah. Okay. So number 3, this is about defining your niche and being specific.
Yeah. So it's a terrifying thing to do, right? Because the moment you say, I am a specialist in making anthropological films about Samoa, it's like, well, that's a niche that's like this small, right? And you're excluding all this other stuff. But we live in this digital age where we're all looking for what we're looking for. So whether you're a freelancer or a sole trader or a founder, saying what you love and do best is absolutely essential, because no one else has the time to figure it out. You know, I read people's LinkedIn profiles or their company profiles, and it's like a whole speech about them that like makes them sound like an expert on everything. Yeah. And they could go on an RTS panel tomorrow. But what it doesn't tell me is what problems they're going to solve, what pain points they're going to fix, what they actually deliver. So if my hot point gas boiler is broken down, I want someone who says, I fix hot point gas boilers. I don't want someone who says, I'm in love with kitchen appliances. How does that help me? So very often in film and TV, people go, I love making films about people. Whereas if they actually said, I am passionate about anthropological films in Samoa, they've got a much better chance of getting a commission, because we all want experts, right? Yeah. So most independent production companies are like shops in Burlington Arcade, right? They're specialist niche companies run by the person who is making the content, right? The exec or the showrunner. And, you know, that's true from tiny companies to larger ones like Newtopia. And I saw you had a great interview with Jane Ruth the other day. The same would be true of Newtopia as it would be for a small indie starting up. They have a specialist niche and they deliver in that niche, and people come to them to do what they do best. Yeah. So if you can tell people what it is you love and do best, you're off to a much better start, because then you're the little store in Burlington Arcade that sells alligator belts rather than the little store in Burlington Arcade that is like a mini John Lewis.
And everybody that walks through the door, there's a much better chance of them being a buyer than if you've got another kind of store that, you know, that people are just going to come in and browse and maybe, I'm not sure about this, I'll leave by the back door.
100%. And they're actually coming to the door to buy what you have, because they want an expert who makes this kind of programming. They don't want a mini John Lewis. If you want John Lewis, go to John Lewis, where they have everything and they're big. There are plenty of John Lewises, but, you know, you can't be that if you're a small company. So you have to exclude the stuff that you're not great at and you don't love, and just say what you love most and do best. And it will be much more successful, whatever you're doing in this space.
Okay. And number 4, this is about defining your superpower.
Yeah, well, that's kind of aligned, except that it's more personal. So whether you're running a company with a bunch of other people, or whether you're a sole trader doing it for yourself, just being clear with yourself and other people about what it is you bring to the table. I think for a long time, people thought you need to be good at lots and lots of things, right? And very often when people start indies, they feel like they have to be good at everything because they're the only person there, right? When you're starting an indie. So you feel like you have to be an organizer, and you have to be a content creator, and you have to be a magnet for creative talent. And the truth is, there's probably one thing that you do really, really well, and other things that you probably don't. And being honest about the thing that you do really, really well. And sometimes we don't see the thing that we do really, really well clearly, because we need other people to say, oh, well, what you're really great is at organizing. You're the person who makes it all happen. And because I do that, in my case, that's not true, by the way. I'm not a great organizer, but because if you were the person who was a great organizer, you wouldn't even see it, because it came to you so naturally. You just organize everything. You've been organizing everything since you were 3 years old. You've been organizing your toys and your parents and everything. But that's your superpower gift. That's the thing you do best. That's the thing that you bring to the table that no one else can quite match. And understanding what it is, it only needs to be one thing. You only need to have one superpower gift. But knowing what it is and communicating to other people what it is makes it much easier for them to deal with you, work with you, bring you onto a team, bring you onto a project. It also makes it much easier for you to know who else you need. Because if you really are an organizer and you're not a content creator and you're not a magnet for talent, for instance, then you need those people on a team. And you need to respect their superpowers and give them that autonomy and say, I will do the organize. So with my first company, Brighter Pictures, I was the content creator and my partner was the managing director. And it made it very simple because everything that was in the realm of making stuff happen logistically, he took care of. And everything that was in the realm of proposal writing and creation, I did. So knowing your superpower is super important.
Yeah. And lean into it, right?
And lean into it and own it. And don't feel you have to have more than one. I mean, it's great if you have two superpowers, and some people genuinely do. But we're not all kind of Renaissance princes with multiple skill sets. You can just have one, and it's great. You can build a whole business on that one. And when you do build a business, just knowing what you do best and getting other people to do it is a useful follow-on. But the fifth tip, I think so many people in film and TV, and not only people in film and TV, so many of us feel like we have to do it on our own for it to count. And because we said we were going to do it on our own, we have to we said it to ourselves. We said, I can make it. I can do it on my own. I don't need any help. We then have to follow that through. And like asking for advice or asking for support feels to a lot of people like failure. Like, it will make me look so weak if I ask you for help. So I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do it on my own, even though I'm not very good at it. And even though you do it much better, but even just admitting that you do it much better and that I'm not very good at it makes me feel weak. But that's crazy because when we look around us at really strong, powerful people, they're generally great at asking for help. And when somebody says to me, this is not my strength, I'm quite weak at this, would you help me? I don't think that they're a failure. I don't think that they're weak. It makes them look strong. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Takes a lot of self-belief to be able to say, I'm good at this, but not good at that. So it's really important to ask other people for support and guidance and help. And by the way, I'm not saying this from the place of like, I did this so well in my career. I did it. I was terrible at it. It was a big mistake. I would have grown my company much more. And I would have made a lot more money if I had been better at asking and receiving help. Because it's not just that I didn't ask for it. When it was offered, I didn't take it. And I think, having mentors, having guides, having allies, having advisors, having like an unofficial board of advisors or actually an official board of advisors just helps you have a better understanding of whatever it is you're doing. You can bring in people who have specialty gifts that you don't have. If you're a magnet for talent, you can bring in an organizer. If you're an organizer, you can bring in a magnet for talent. And you can help grow your business quite a lot more cheaply than if you had to actually hire those people, as I did, as employees. Often they're not even half as good as the people you could have got to advise you for free, right? So the truth is we love giving help. It's a human thing, right? It makes us feel needed and affirmed and valued when somebody says, will you help me in this way that I know I can help you? It makes me feel good about myself. So when somebody asks you to do something which you know you can powerfully do, everyone loves it. And we all understand that from the perspective of being the person who's being asked for help, but we somehow don't flip it around and we think, oh, well, I love being asked for help. I love it. And it makes me feel good and it makes me feel valued. But if I ask you for help, you'll hate it. Why is that? It doesn't make any sense. I'm actually giving you a gift by asking you to help me in a way that only you can help me, because then you're making a contribution. So it's a really powerful thing, which I think a lot of people miss. And I think it does tie in a little bit to that thing of I came into TV in the first place to prove that I'm not good enough. So now I'm definitely not going to ask you for help because that would prove that I'm not good enough. Actually, it proves you are. It proves you're strong. It proves you're confident, and it will help you grow your business in unimaginable ways.
All right. It's if you're lost and your iPhone goes down, you would ask for directions, wouldn't you? And people are always very happy to help you on your way. And it's almost a little bit like that.
It is. And you don't even have to be lost. You just have to go, I wonder if there's a better way to do this. You're so expert in this, right? You've been producing podcasts for, this is your 200 and something podcast. What can you tell me that you didn't know at the beginning? What you wish you know when you started out? What advice can you give me if I'm starting a podcast? Why wouldn't I ask you that? It's not, I don't even need to be lost to ask the question. I just need to be mindful of the fact that I'm not an expert in everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd be very happy and honored to help you. So,
thank you. Don't worry, I'm not starting a podcast.
No. Okay. Well, Remy, fantastic. Thank you for those 5 tips. And now it's time for Story of the Week. where my guests on the show get to pick their TV or content industry story from the past 7 days that caught their eye. So, Remy, what's your story of the week?
Well, I think the story that so many of my clients and friends have been talking about is the riots and the protests around race and immigration, the anti-Muslim riots and the response to that in the UK. And I think, it's only a digital story because there are so many digital and content kind of components to it, from the way that both sides were able to mobilize thanks to social media platform, to the way that the stories that were told were skewed by the need for drama. What was shown wasn't necessarily helpful to either side in terms of the narratives, because it was all about drama and entertainment value, even for the news stories. And then, there's the other kind of longer running story, which is that although there are many characters who exemplify the communities that they come from, who are depicted on TV, the communities that they come from very often aren't depicted on TV. So there are often minoritized characters on TV who we see as being nuanced and complex and likable, but the same isn't true for the communities they come from. And I think very often, so as content creators, we have some responsibility in how we shape people's understanding of, for instance, British Muslims in the UK, because, that's a community that I've seen very little drama about that reflects the reality of their lived experience. So I've chosen that as my news story of the week.
How about your hero of the week?
My hero of the week is a writer and editorial director called Michelle Manaphy. She works at Content Next, and she's the editorial director there. And she's very vocal, not only on issues such as race and exclusion, but also about like how AI is affecting journalism and the ways in which we need to be mindful of that. And she's kind of been a guiding voice on many of those issues, particularly in the last week. So I feel like she's my unexpected hero of the week, Michelle Manaphy.
And who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
Gosh, I'm not sure about getting in the bin, but definitely I think the villain of the week has been Google's monopolistic tendencies, and they've been on trial in the US. And I think, everyone who wants to advocate for fairness and equality kind of can see that the US court that ruled against them was ruling against some perhaps quite villainous tendencies.
All right. Well, Remy, thank you so much for coming on TellyCast. Really enjoyed having you on the show. TellyCast was produced by Spirit Studios and recorded in London. For videos featuring the movers and shakers of the TV and digital content industries, just click on the link in the episode description or search for TellyCast TV on YouTube. And we'll see you next week for another show. Until then, stay safe.